Hello, Nav here, plastic surgeon. Welcome to the Real Clinic podcast, sponsored by 42 South Films. This is where we take a behind-the-scenes look at the surgery industry, get to meet key players in the business, learn about setting up a clinic such as Real, and meet some of the best surgeons around. Welcome to another episode of the Real Clinic podcast, sponsored by 42 South Films. Today, we're going to be talking to Beccy Lee about everything to do with PR, everything to do with marketing, as opposed to advertising, by the way, so listen out for that. Hopefully cover things like why somebody like me, a plastic surgeon, should be working with a PR agency or a PR person. And, you know, hopefully you'll get an idea of why it's worked in kind of promoting my practice, for example, and helping me grow. And whether or not it's right for you. So thank you. Welcome, Beccy.
Thank you for having me. Delighted to be here.
Thank you for coming all the way down.
Yes, all the way down from Manchester this morning. So it's good.
So I tell you what, if we can start off, we'll get into the nitty gritty of what we've done and all the usual things that we've got time. But yeah, it's like the blind date question. Tell me, what's your name? Where'd you come from? Tell me about yourself. That
Absolutely. Kind of thing. So my name is Rebecca Lee, but I usually go by the name Beccy. And I am a PR and communications consultant. So I guess the point where I always start is when I was doing my A-levels. Yeah. So I did business, I did art, I did English language and psychology. And I was always going to go down one of two routes. I was either going to go down the business route or the art route. I wasn't quite sure. I ended up going down the business route. And I'd always had an interest in beauty, actually. Yeah. So I did an NVQ in beauty therapy alongside my A-levels, which my parents weren't too happy with because I was doing like double the work, essentially. But it was fine. I got my NVQ, and the kind of idea behind that was that when I was at uni, I wanted to be able to work in a salon to like earn money as well. So I did that. I did a general business degree at Lancaster University Management School. Brilliant school. Loved every minute whilst I was there. And then I kind of knew that I wanted to go into the beauty side of things. I just wasn't sure which area it was yet.
And what was it that made you want to do the beauty side of things in the first place?
I just always loved it. I'd love like skincare. Yeah. I love skincare.
Was that since being a teenager kind of thing? Or?
Since being even since before being a teenager, if I'm being honest. Like I loved beauty. I loved makeup. I loved skincare, hair care, the whole shebang.
Were you going to be a hairdresser or something?
I don't know. I think because I had that creative side of me as well, like because of the art side as well. I wasn't quite sure, but yeah, it was one of those where it was like that. It's like the butterfly effect, isn't it? You need to go down one path or the other. And so I did general business degree, loved it. And then kind of, you know, when you're that age, and I guess if you've not done like a vocational degree, like say if you were a doctor, for example, your options are quite open. Yeah. So I still wasn't really sure where I wanted to go. Yeah. So I ended up taking a job in Manchester. Right. As a buying assistant for a beauty company. Right. And it was fun, but it wasn't what I wanted to do.
I did a job like that, you know, once for BHS, a summer job. Yeah. And I was sat there with all the buyers. Yeah. It was really boring.
Yeah, it just wasn't as glamorous as I thought it would be. Don't get me wrong, there were aspects of it that were quite fun, and I had a great time. You know, I was 21 in Manchester, just having a great time with like my colleagues and stuff, but it just wasn't what I wanted to do. And then basically my boyfriend, now husband, Joe, he moved to London straight after university to do what he needed to do. And I'd always sort of like toyed with the idea of moving down to London. So I applied for a few jobs down in London, and I got one as a marketing assistant for a agency, a design agency actually, it was called G. Gibbons and Partners at the time. And with that came a little bit of doing PR as well. And it was interesting because the design agency specifically only worked with beauty brands. Right. So again, I still had that connection. So I got exposure to all these brands, big like P&G brands, smaller niche ones. I had a really cool like creative director there who was just, I learned loads from.
Yeah.
And yeah, as part of that role, I started to do a bit more, a few like PR aspects that I thought I really liked. And then also at the time I was a blogger as well. So I was a beauty blogger. Yeah. So a beauty blogger at the time, back when it was very sort of like new and sort of emerging. So
what year are we talking now?
That will have been 2012. It was the Olympics.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So it was around the time of the Olympics that we both moved down to London.
Okay.
And yeah, so basically, I was getting PR sent to me as a beauty blogger, and I was getting invited to events. Okay. And I got chatting to a few of the PRs there, and I was like, actually, your job sounds quite cool. I think I'd quite like to do that. So then I started to apply for a few PR assistant jobs, worked at a few different agencies. That was, it was great exposure, not the kind of agencies that I wanted to be at. They were quite big. Yeah. And then an in-house role came up at a skincare brand called Oskia, which you might not have heard of. But anyway, the founders of that brand, they were called Georgie Cleve and George Gordon, and they were the best bosses that I ever had. They just sort of like let me do my own thing, and they were just, fantastic. Did that for 3 years and then decided to move back agency side just to expand a bit. And when I moved agency side, that's when things really started to, I guess, snowball. So I went to an agency specifically to look after a skincare brand called Medicate.
Okay. Oh, yes.
Very new at the time. And they were very much a professional brand. Yeah. And I sort of thought that if I wanted to make this brand a success and the professional route was sort of the route that they were going down, I had to get this product into the hands of doctors, into the hands of surgeons. Yeah. Right. So I went up and down Harley Street and just started giving out samples of Medicate to all the doctors and surgeons on Harley Street. And a lot of the doctors and surgeons often got asked by press, what are you using? Can you give me some product recommendations? And the Medicate mentions started to come through. And yes, I basically worked with Medicate in some capacity. I think it was just shy of 7 years. Okay. Some of it in-house for them, some of them via agency. And it was when I was at one of the agencies, an amazing PR agency called Pure. And basically, I had met lots of doctors and surgeons, and I was like, who's doing their PR? And it just sort of was a bit of a light bulb moment, I guess, because I knew they existed, but nobody was really, I guess, owning that space yet. Yeah. So I asked my boss at the time, Kelly, who I was with at Pure, if she would consider letting me do freelance for Pure and doing 2 days a week to try and get the PR of some doctors and surgeons to work with. And amazingly, she said yes. Like, I really didn't think she was going to say yes. But she was so supportive, and she was like, yeah, absolutely, go for it. So yeah, that was fantastic. So then, I got
that's when you started.
That's when I started.
And who were your first doctors?
Angeli was one of my first clients. Yeah, Dr. Angeli Marto.
We're going to be interviewing actually on this at some point
She's
soon.
Fantastic, and she's been quite pivotal in like helping me build the business as well, to be honest. She introduced me to you, for example. Yep. And we now work together and been working together for
at least 5 years, isn't it?
At least 5 years.
If not longer.
I think it was during COVID, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So Angeli was one of the first, and it's just grown from there. I took a little bit of a break when I had my son Wilfred, but now I've got six clients on my roster. Angela yourself, the Farjo Hair Institute, Bessam and Nilofer and Greg, who are there, and then I have a consultant ophthalmologist, Mr. Alex Day. I've got a brilliant cosmetic dentist called Dr. Stephen Dodd, and very recently I've just took on a consultant gynecologist called Miss Meeta Sinha, and that's sort of my portfolio for now. So my job is to basically raise awareness of these medical experts within the media, in the hope that patient bookings will increase and referrals will increase.
And so if we go on to, the easiest example to use is me.
Yeah.
So if you can just kind of explain, I thought, Angeli was the one who said, you should think about a PR, you're kind of getting busy enough and big enough, and maybe you now need to get the right kind of presence out there, because I was doing all right on social media. I was getting the odd inquiry through the press, but it was a bit rare, and I wasn't particularly good at it. But that was what just got me thinking. But what was it that made you decide that, you know what, I was all right to work with, or it was worth working with? Or
so we always,
because if I'm honest, when we got together, as it were,
Yeah.
when Angie introduced me to you, I wasn't quite sure what
Yeah.
PR was. I
Yeah.
had no idea what it meant.
Yep.
I didn't know why I was bothering. What's in it for me? But before we get, so anyway, I kind of get it now. We can talk about that in a minute. But before that, can you tell me what it was that you saw in someone like me?
Sure.
That was, I'm not, you know, don't worry, you
No,
don't have to
no,
blow
no,
smoke and all that. But just tell me what it was that you thought could work.
So basically, through doing the work that I was doing with Medicate and the skincare brand, it sort of exposed me to experts, so to speak. And it's only when I started doing my own research that I realised that a lot of people in the media were calling themselves experts when they weren't really anything of the sort.
Yeah.
And that was sort of, I guess, again, another light bulb moment where I was like, hang on, who should actually be talking? Who should be the authority on this?
Yep.
And it was the same for, I guess, you can say it for every medical speciality. There are the actual experts, and then there are cowboys in every industry, basically. And I sort of decided from the start that I wanted to work with pretty much consultant-led only. You know, they've been through the training. They are the experts of their field. There's no other way to
I'll tell you what, just so that I can hear it, so that people can hear it. Tell me what that list is that you were thinking of. You know, you said consultant. Like, what else?
Probably only consultant, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because just thinking about my client roster now, it's all consultant led, with the exception of Steve, my dentist. But again, still general dentistry.
Yeah. Fine.
It's consultant led. And then the other thing is, it's quite hard because with some medics, there's two things that I look for in a potential client. One, you're the top of your field. You're the expert in. You've done the training. You've earned your stripes, basically. And you can comment quite authoritatively on your specialism. Like you've done the work, right? The other thing is looking for a certain charisma as well.
Okay.
I need to be confident that I could put you in front of press and that you can handle your own. And I can help with that. But there is something that you need to inherently possess. And I would say that's true of all my client roster at the moment. They are the top of their field. And I can confidently put them in front of one of my journalist contacts, and I know that they'll be okay. So they're the two main things that I sort of look for.
Okay. And what are the sort of things that are an instant turn off, as it were, and you just go, you know what, this is never going to work?
I think if they don't ask you questions as well. So if it's very much me, I need them to be able to, ask questions to the journalists as well. Like almost sort of like, you know, feel them out. Make it a conversation rather than like a straightforward interview. Basic stuff like presentability, just having a nice persona about them. I know that sounds like really basic, but you would be surprised. Like the amount, I get a lot of new business inquiries, and I would say that the vast majority, it's difficult, isn't it? Because it's on the one hand, medics aren't trained in that sort of side of things. They're not trained in the business side of things.
Exactly. I mean, that's
so
the whole
it's
point
difficult,
of,
isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
So it is quite rare to find someone that's got both of those things. So when I do find someone that has both, I'm a bit like a dog with a bone in terms of like, you're quite rare. I need to have you on my books kind of thing. So it's one of those, I would say.
And just, again, a slight diversion or tangent. What is it that you think has made those people a little bit savvy with some of those other skills like business and marketing or presentability?
I think they have like an interest in business. Like they generally, they want to grow their private practice. There's obviously that entrepreneurial streak to be able to set up a private practice in the first place, right? So generally, they have that bit of a spark in them in terms of charisma and that entrepreneurship. So I would say it would be that, really. I'm just what I'm basically trying to do for those who are watching is, as well as people kind of trying to suss out what this world is about, it's kind of
if, you know, there might be certain people that go, you know what, that's just not going to ever be me.
Yeah.
So I won't bother. And
that-
I'll run my private practice differently.
Yeah.
You know, without all the razzmatazz and
Yeah.
the PR and
Yeah,
the glitz and glamour or whatever you want to call it.
Absolutely.
And I think that's quite important for people to realize as well, because there are a lot of people. I get the feeling, and you can tell me, I think, and I probably thought this as well when I first
Yeah.
thought about PR,
Yeah.
is that I'll sign a check every month, and then you're going to produce everything, and you're going to, that's it, and suddenly my name will be up in lights everywhere.
It's a two-way
And
thing
it
as
doesn't
well.
work,
It doesn't
Yeah.
work like that,
No.
unfortunately. I kind of wish it did. It would be much easier, but you know, you sort of get in as well you get out of it what you put in as well.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'm constantly messaging you to say, Nav, can you do these quotes really quickly? Because they often work to such tight timelines as well, the journalists.
Yeah.
We have that rapid turnaround, and that's sort of something that I pride myself on as well, that the people, the journalists know that they're getting the best of the best, and that they're media trained, and that they will turn around these quotes as quick as possible.
I mean, that's one of the things that I learned, is that you cannot, you know, you'll send me a WhatsApp or an email, and it's like, I don't care if you type this out, Nav, just do a voice note or something, and I'll transcribe it and send it to you, make it sound like it's, you know, you saying it, and then you tell me. And I think that works quite well, actually.
It does work quite well. I think that, basically it's that rapid turnaround. And basically, once you've done that once for journalists and you've helped them out, you're in their good books then, and they're going to keep coming back and back and back. So it's just, it works like that.
It's interesting, you know, a couple of days ago,
Yes.
you texted me, and it was, the journalist had said, are you still working with Nav?
Yes.
If so, can you ask him this? And I was thinking, okay, you know, and actually, I know that a lot of my colleagues will be looking at that going, well, why do I now need Beccy? Because actually, a journalist may as well have just phoned me up directly. But actually, I was thinking, that's part of this back and forth.
100%.
You know,
sometimes,
network.
People say like, what is the point in the PR? It's access to the network. It's access to the journalists the network of journalists that I built up over 13 years or so. So it's, you know, normally you wouldn't be able to get in front, like some people wouldn't be able to get in front of certain press without that introduction, without that connection. So it's about that. And just the journalists knowing that they can come to me to find reputable experts as well. That's the sort of reputation that I want to build up for myself, and that I think I have done so far. So it's really important that I choose clients carefully, and clients choose me as well. Like it is so much. I always say, I think I said this to you when we first started working together, I don't want you to see me as like an agency or something separate. I want the feel to be that I'm your in-house PR. And that's why I've purposely kept my client roster quite tight as well, because I think once you get to a certain point, you can't be that to everyone anymore. Absolutely. So it's that in-house feel. I want you to feel like I'm not just your PR, I'm almost like a bit of a brand guardian for you almost as well. So I would say.
So what I was going to move on to next was, how do you, because this is the other thing also, and I've had this because you did do some work for the clinic, for example, and now we've moved on to a slightly different side of that. But what I was hearing within the clinic was, you know, I don't see much happening, and I'm going, no, it's there, it's, you know, it's organic. It's so how should, so let's say I decide to sign up with you, you sign up with me, and it is this sort of marriage. How do I know if it's going all right?
I would say that the main thing would be communication in terms of between you and the client. I think, you know, with me, I feel like I keep my clients quite in the loop with what we're doing and what we're up to. There's a monthly status report. You should know really what's going on with your PR. You should know what's happening, what their focus is that month, what you've achieved that month. And the one thing that I will say is that if you're first starting out, sometimes it can take a little while. So it's a cliche, but PR is absolutely a marathon and not a sprint. It's constant press mentions chugging away in the background before that name recognition starts to come to fruition. And I think sometimes people think that with PR, they can just pay an agency and, like you said, the name will be up in lights next month. It's kind of not how it works. You need to be constantly showing your expertise. You need to be constantly plugging away in the background. And it does get to a point, for example, like with, I think it was Jackie from Refinery who messaged us about this piece last week. You know, eventually they do start to come to you as well. The journalists, like they know, it's like the fact that she knew of you and your name, like she, you know, we broke that sort of.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm on her books, but
exactly,
and she knows
exactly,
that,
and that's the dream. That's what we want for all clients eventually. But that does take time. It really does. If you think of how much noise there is out there, and again, remember that within each speciality as well, how many people you're competing with within the space. Some specialities have loads, some more refined. But yeah, you're competing with a lot of people, a lot of non-experts as well, who are positioning themselves as experts. So you've got to be constantly chugging away to break through the noise.
And I think that's the thing, isn't it? It is, as you say, it is a war of attrition. And it's the same thing. I was talking to Francesca White, who's a big fan of yours.
Yeah, I love Francesca. Yeah, she's fantastic.
And so it's the getting your name, to come up on Google is not just by paying thousands of pounds to some agency or pay-per-click or whatever. Yeah. I get the feeling it's just constant, little bit, every week or two.
And SEO PR is quite an important part of all my the strategy for all my clients actually. And actually that was something that I think one of the early adopters of, the SEO element. Because I remember being in agencies and thinking, if I could get access to their analytics, I can actually see what's working. And I remember doing that for Medicaid, getting access to the Google Analytics for Medicaid and actually seeing which publications were gaining traction.
You do that for me, don't you?
I look at what drives traffic through to the website. In fact, I think I've got Google analytics access for all my clients actually. It's just really interesting because that helps me inform my strategy as well then, so that we can see what publications are actually driving traffic.
Before we go on, what is Google Analytics again, just to explain to people?
Sure. So Google Analytics is basically your website. It will work out where traffic sources are coming from. It looks at demographic. It looks at basically all the statistics behind your website. And the bit that I'm in, it's a huge platform and there are Google Analytics experts. The bit that I'm interested in is the referrals section of that. What sources are linking to your website. And I guess it'd be useful here for me just to explain a little bit about SEO PR.
Yeah, absolutely.
A big part of my strategy with SEO PR is I want to get links from your website onto the publication's website. And so,
by the way, SEO is search engine optimization. Again.
And there's like a subspecialty called SEO PR, which is sort of what I do, because Google ranks every single website with something called domain authority. It's on a scale of 0 to 100. A 5 domain authority would be something like a new blog. It's not got much interest. It's quite small. It's quite new. The BBC's got a domain authority of like 99 or something like that. So the higher ranking domain authorities, they're the publications that you want to link back to your website because it sort of signals to Google that actually this is a credible website because this other credible website is linking to it. And that's what helps you push up the search engine rankings. So it's quite an important part, and it's a part that not a lot of PRs took notice of for quite a long time. It was all about print. But actually, I would say nowadays my split for most clients is probably 80-20 in terms of digital to print.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting, isn't it? I always quite like seeing my name in print.
Don't get me wrong, I love print coverage, and I think as we become more digital, there is going to be like a proportion of people that do still want print for sure. I think so. And it's interesting as well because there are certain print titles that still drive insane traffic. The Sunday Times style, for example, like coverage in there usually always results in referrals or back when I was doing brands, sales. It's really interesting. print coverage absolutely has its place. It's not dead at all.
It's the only thing that keeps my mum happy as well.
It's so nice though, isn't it, to see your name in print. Like I get that whenever I get a piece of print coverage for a client. I love sharing it because it's such a nice thing to see and to get the physical copy as well. Like I dropped some off at my dentist client the other day, and I love handing that over and just being like, look, here's your name in print. It's great. It's so nice. So yeah, no, print absolutely has its place, but I would say the vast majority of my focus would be digital, just because it helps with the SEO as well.
So let's go on a little bit more specific about what you and I have done together.
Sure.
Can you, in your own words, I can sort of, see that I've been doing better and better over the years.
Yeah.
But talk me through how it's worked in, if your page about Nav, what does that say? How's that grown in your mind? So, talk me through the story from your point of view.
Yeah. So when we first started out, I think it was still in the middle of COVID, right? Yeah. So it was a bit of a tricky time, just generally. But I remember at the time, a lot of clinics, I would say, stopped their PR. It was one of the first things to go, which meant that journalists didn't have anywhere to go in terms of to get expert comment from. So I was like, this is an opportunity. Yeah. So I think one of the first pieces that we did was a Vogue piece, actually. Yeah. And I was so thrilled with that, because like, that's quite hard to achieve for your first piece of coverage. That was pretty awesome.
I definitely feel I hit the jackpot.
It was great. But that was because all the PR had stopped for most agencies and most big clinics that were paying for it just immediately cut it. So it left an opportunity for us smaller people to sort of like go in there with our experts. So with UNAV, our focus was very much positioning you as the expert within plastics. So it was about creating a lot of evergreen content for things that we knew people would be searching for, and therefore journalists would be interested in as well. From their perspective, they need to create articles that drive interest and that they know their readers want to search for. So we created lots of evergreen content. We still do it now because it works. So for example...
And what do you mean by evergreen content?
So evergreen content is stuff that will always be relevant. So people will always be searching for it. So I'll take the opposite of evergreen content. So we do things called like reactive press as well, or it's sometimes referred to as piggybacking, where we see a story in the media and we're like, ooh, actually, that would be really good for Nav to comment on the back of. Perfect example is the thing that you did for ITV recently. So like there was the surfer that unfortunately had his leg, was it a shark? It was a shark. Nasty. But that's a sort of an opportunity for you to come in as an expert and say, actually, these are the things that we need to think about. So piggybacking is one side, where we're taking something that's topical, that's in the news cycle, but putting our spin on it.
That's just a quick little gets your name out there.
And it really works. It's like, I'm trying to think of one of the ones that we've done for you that's been really successful. The buccal fat removal. So that was doing the rounds on TikTok to start off with. People were showing off their buccal fat removal surgery. And I think I messaged you being like, this is not a good idea, is it? Like for X, Y, Z. And you're like, no. So I was like, right, let's do a quick, piggybacking piece just with Nav's expert comments, just saying why
I don't
the considerations for it. Like I think it was fairly balanced, to be honest, what you said. And it got picked up by loads of different publications. So that's an example of piggybacking. Evergreen content is stuff that doesn't have a time limit on it.
Kind of how to find a proper plastic surgeon, or
everything you need to know about a breast augmentation. 5 things to know about a rhinoplasty. It's those sort of things that will always be relevant. So they're evergreen, so to speak.
And how do you get my name out there? What is it that you're actually doing on a regular basis to get my name out there to journalists?
So we'll be issuing a press release every month.
And where does that go? What do you mean issuing a press release?
I will send it out so I create a sort of bespoke database of journalists that I think are relevant to you. So it consists of a lot of the beauty press, for example, because sometimes they'll talk about plastic surgery, the health press, and it's sort of bespoke and tweaked per client. There is a lot of crossover.
So you've got this list of journalists next to my name.
And when we have a press release, I'll email it out to them and just say, I thought this might be of interest.
Yeah.
Let me know. And if it's not, then that's fine. You know where I am if you are working on anything where you think Nav would be relevant for. And it's interesting because sometimes they will receive the press release and they won't do anything with it immediately. They'll file it. And then when it comes to a time where, I don't know, they're searching for like nose jobs, for example, they'll just type that into their and then it'll come up, and then
so
it's you know, press releases that we sent out a year ago are still relevant now in some cases, again, because it's that evergreen content. So we want to be doing a mixture of evergreen content and sort of piggybacking seasonal content as well.
And then if I get the feeling there's certain like bulletin boards or something. Is that right? Is there sort of...
So there's different pieces of software that do what we call call outs, where press... in fact, if you look on Twitter actually and you type in the hashtag journal request, you'll see it'll come up with not Twitter, sorry, X. You will see loads of requests from press. Who are looking for certain things, so you could type in.
Goes. But there's I'm maybe I'm just imagining this, but there isn't like some sort of website that you go to and say, hey, I've got, I want to, because I can't remember, there was something I was wanting to get out there recently, and I sort of said to you, can we please make get this? That's right. There was a like an exhibition thing in Olympia or somewhere like that, and these Turkish surgeons were coming along.
Yes.
And and basically it sounded like they were running clinics in what was not really a clinic.
Yeah, we got some great coverage out of that. Yeah.
And it's like, look, can you please, I think this is dodgy. Can you please get the word out
so
there?
So that was me emailing my select contacts rather than me uploading it. So you can issue press releases on something called a newswire or a press wire.
Right.
There's companies like Cision, which is one of the big ones, where you can upload your press release and it'll get sent out to every news desk in the country. Right. It's a bit of a scattergun approach. Yep. I find I get better, and there's nothing wrong with it. It depends on the client. It depends on the situation. But I personally find that emailing specific contacts yields better results.
Touch,
and it's even, they want you to get to the point as well, so it doesn't even have to be like a lengthy email with lovely polite introductions. It's just sort of like, I've got this story, I think you might find it of interest, and that's exactly what happened with your story with the Turkish clinics doing the was it a
it was like an exhibition
it was
somewhere near
Health Tourism Expo. That was it.
That's it. Yes.
And we sort of had some thoughts on that.
Yes.
And I messaged a few journalists to say, look, my plastic surgeon client Nav has seen this. It's happening this weekend. He's got some thoughts on it. So again, it was timely. It was reactive, and we acted fast with it. Like I think as soon as you sent me that link through to say, look at this, I think it's of interest. We created the release and issued it within a few hours. And it's working quite reactively. That got us the results. And I think we saw, it was in the Guardian. It was on. Exactly. It was in quite a few different publications in the end, and it really worked. And it's because it was timely, it was topical, and we were providing the journalists with true expert comment on it.
And it's interesting, it wasn't exactly the kind of coverage I was hoping for, because there was a little element to that piece where it almost made it sound like it was all right.
Yeah.
And that was a shame. But I think if you look at the bigger picture, and I had a few of my mates texting me going, that backfired a bit, didn't it? And I went, no, it didn't.
No, it was a balanced piece, because they have to be balanced.
They're being balanced, but actually someone who will eventually pick up on this, because it's the Guardian, that along with a whole lot of other stuff will add up to them then realising that going health tourism is not a great idea or whatever.
The best we can do is put our opinion out there. And I guess that is the difference between PR and advertising. Like PR is, we're putting our comment out there, and the journalists will craft it into a story that might not be the way that we want it to go. It's it's their journalistic integrity at the end of the day. They will put it out there how they see fit, and that's the way it should be. Compared to advertising, where you get to decide the exact communications that go out. The benefit of PR is that you're not saying you're brilliant, somebody else is.
I think that's exactly
the crux of it.
That's also it's one of the things I go on about with social media. Is social media is not advertising. It's not, here, look at me, I'm great. It's here, look at this. This is interesting.
Yeah.
I did this and I did that, and I thought this was, would work, and it all kind of, came together in the end.
Mm-hmm.
And in the background, hopefully people are thinking, yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
And I'm trying. It's really interesting that people don't get that.
Yeah.
When it comes to something as simple as an Instagram post, and
Yeah.
the number of times that people are going, look at this, yet another happy client.
Yeah.
Aren't we great? And
Yeah.
you're kind of going, yeah, that's a bit boring. You said that last time. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So it's about that is the crux of PR, is getting somebody else to say,
yes, that's
you're
really,
an expert, you're brilliant.
Yeah, that's really
that's
interesting.
the crux of it.
Yeah, that's really that's a really interesting way of thinking of it.
Yeah.
So tell me about, I guess, social media. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so how do you think someone like, and not necessarily working with you, so let's say not everybody's going to hire someone like you that's watching.
Yep.
What advice would you give someone, because you're obviously an expert on social media in terms of what works, what doesn't work. So what should someone like me be doing out there as a plastic surgeon or whatever surgeon or doctor?
Yeah. I think it's about, this word gets thrown about often, but it's true. It's about being authentic on there.
Yep.
It's about sometimes showing the highs and the lows, and not all, as you say, it's not always about saying, look how amazing I am. Look how, especially if it's a personal profile compared to a clinic profile. I think they're quite different. For a personal profile, people want to see behind the scenes. Yeah. People want to see what you're up to, who you are as a person. Yep. I think if you can show your personality, that's quite important, because a lot of the time, patients who are thinking of booking in with a doctor or a surgeon for a consultation, they will look at your social media. Yep. They'll have a good stalk of your profile to see what kind of person you are. Yep. So getting your personality across is quite important, and just having that presence, because you'd be amazed at the amount of medics and surgeons that don't have a presence.
I think you're absolutely right, actually. I mean, one of the things I really want is, and I think it works actually, not only just because of my social media profile, but because of whatever else that's out there. If you Google my name or word of mouth or all those different things that people have found out information about me from, what I want is they turn up in my clinic. So Wednesday, day after tomorrow, I've got a clinic. Ideally, every single one of those new patients, even before they walk in through the door, I kind of am hoping that they kind of know me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or feel that they know me.
Yeah.
And they've decided they like me enough to turn up.
Yeah.
And pay the fee and turn up.
Yeah.
And I don't want people who are going to turn up and go, "Ooh, I don't like him."
Yeah, and that's
it's a waste of their time,
people
waste
like
of my
to
time.
know. They like to know you, and so they'll often look at your social media. People will search you on Google as well, and that's where sometimes the PR aspect is quite important, because they will see that you've been featured on like the Times. They'll see you've been in the Telegraph, and it's another feather in your cap to say, actually, this person's quite credible. They get the media are talking to them. Actually, this person, they're an authority in the field. They know what they're talking about, and it gives that extra layer of reassurance to the patient as well. So it's all these different elements, making sure your website is slick, making sure you've got an Instagram presence, making sure that if you can, that PR is a priority. They all work together to help the patient build a picture of you. And actually, just before I forget, this podcast is sponsored by Santiago, who's behind the camera here, 42 South Films, who also does our website as well. Has helped us with the clinic website, helped me with my website, and is now helping us with this podcast. So it all works together. It really does. And so those sort of three elements. The website, just making sure that the website has been built properly as well. That massively helps me as well. Just for there's the SEO from the website itself. There's the SEO that I can help build it with. It's just making sure everything's aligned, and that's the sort of key, I would say.
So what do you think? So I'm hoping by now people have got a vague idea of what you and I do together and what you do with your other clients. Where does it go from here then? What do you think we should be thinking about? Or what should I be thinking about that I'm not thinking about, that you really want me to understand it again? Come on, Nav.
I would say, honestly, you're doing a fantastic job. And I think one of the things that we've not really touched upon, which is a really important element of PR, is the networking aspect as well. So it's, I think sometimes it can be a bit... you know, you can think sometimes it can be quite like competitive, and it can be a bit like little groups, little cliques within certain fields and stuff like that. I would say if you're a surgeon starting out, be quite open to expanding your network. An example with you would be like the beauty triangle, for example. Like, that's been a fantastic way to get exposure to other people in different specialisms as well, you know, that so you can cross refer, that sort of thing. So I would say more networking. I personally think we're doing a fantastic job. Like, your name is out there. We want more of that for sure. We want it to keep going. We want to keep building. We've got great momentum, but we want to maintain it.
Yeah, I think, I mean, the networking thing is actually, I'd forgotten about that. I think that is important. It's really interesting. I think one of the things that people like me tend to default think is that I'm competing with the next plastic surgeon, or I'm competing with the ENT surgeons or the breast surgeons or the facial surgeons or whatever. And they are the enemy, they're the competition. Actually, what has worked infinitely better, I think, from my point of view, is collaborating with other plastic surgeons and actually almost being a little bit too open to saying, you know what, this is not my thing, why don't you go and see them? Or let's go and ask this person, or let's go and find out a bit more from someone like Anjali, dermatologist, and because we've got stuff to learn from each other.
Absolutely.
And what actually happens is, I think the network grows, and I think I get way more referrals now from colleagues because
you've been so open.
And
it works
it's
both ways.
Yeah, exactly.
It's mutually beneficial.
I think that works really well.
Yeah,
I think that's really, really important. Actually, so yeah. And then, what about the future for you? Where are you? Yeah, what are you thinking? Where to next?
So I'm really happy at the moment.
You're rebranding.
I am rebranding, at the moment. Just having a bit of... So originally when I started up the company, I was still doing a bit of brand work. I was still sort of in-house at Medicate. I was still doing quite a few brands as well. I've honed down now, and since I came back from maternity, I'm just purely looking after experts now. So I wanted to have a bit of a rebrand just to... make myself a bit more known, that if you are a private practice doctor that's interested in PR, I'm your girl.
Cool. Excellent.
Providing that I don't have somebody on my books already that would be a conflict of interest. And I think that point's quite important, actually. There's not very many people that do the conflict of interest thing.
You're a one-person show, aren't you?
Yeah.
Are you thinking of taking on...
I'm in two minds about it, to be honest. I'm thinking of getting a virtual assistant to help me with the admin side of things. Okay. But I'm too much of a control freak to ever hand over my clients to a junior, for example. It's just, it works in some situations. It depending on who it is and what the expectations are. It's just personally not something that I want to do. I want to be that hands-on. I still want to be the in-house PR for all of my clients. So, it's interesting because
And have you hit a limit? Do you think?
I think I could take on a couple more based on my current. I'm going up to full time from September. So I've been gradually bringing back my hours since I had Wilf, so I think from September I'll definitely have capacity. But it will get to a point where I'm like, okay, this is my roster now, and I'm happy with it. Especially if I get a virtual assistant as well, just to take some of the admin pressure off. That'll be beneficial. But it's I'm happy with the way things are at the moment. I'm happy with my tight roster, and it's interesting because I have conversations with colleagues where they say, you're limiting your growth potential by having a conflict of interest policy. So basically, just for explanation, I only have one expert per specialism.
So you don't have any other plastic surgeons.
And I wouldn't have any other plastic surgeons either.
Because I get, by the way, very quickly, I get asked quite often, who's your PR? Can I have their number? And I'll give them your number, but I'll also say, you know what, Beccy won't take you on because you're another plastic surgeon, but she might know someone that can. And I will refer them to other people that I know and trust as well. There are a few people. It depends what they want as well. If they're opening like a massive clinic, they might need and they've got the budget to spend, they might need a massive agency. They might need agency support to, that are well versed in like event management and that sort of thing. So there's a few people that I have.
that are up my sleeve, and a couple of other freelancers as well that are in sort of similar situations to me. So it's useful. But in terms of agencies that I would generally recommend, Mantelpiece PR are great. Kendrick PR are great. And they're both agencies that have that aesthetic specialism as well. There are tons of beauty PR agencies, really good ones. I would recommend Pure PR agency, Help and PR. And then in terms of individuals, there is Natasha Green. And there's a few others as well that I would recommend.
To be honest, I'll probably, if anyone asks me, I'll be putting them in touch with you anyway. So, okay, and then we're kind of getting close to time. But final question. Well, actually, before that, I'm sure I've missed something out. You reminded me of the networking side of things. Anything else we should talk about?
I don't think so. I think we've covered the vast. We've done well, especially in the time. We've covered the vast majority. Hopefully, people will understand a bit more about what PR is, because it's one of those things that I think it was, as we touched upon, medics aren't trained in the business side of things. So I think when sometimes medics don't know if they'd be interested in PR or not, because they don't really know what it is. So hopefully we've helped to clarify what it is and how it can help as well, because that's the goal of it at the end of the day.
I'm hoping people will watch this and go, yeah, you know what, I quite fancy doing that, or no.
And it might be something that's not relevant to you now, but in a few years' time as well, that it might be relevant. It's hiring a PR agency, there's a cost to it, so it might not be when you're first starting out you have the financial capacity to be able to invest in a PR, but it's something that's on your mind.
It's interesting. It was quite a painful jump for me financially back then, because it is a significant chunk. Yeah. But I think once you absorb that and it becomes part of your habit, you see the
referrals through from it as well. It does get to a point where it does start to pay for itself as well in terms of the referrals. And I start
thinking in terms of, okay, so long as I get so many patients this month, I know that I'm happy and it's covering this. That's how I think about a lot of paying for my secretaries, paying for room hire, theatre hire, whatever. There's so many things that
it's like that with any sort of marketing aspect, isn't it?
It's as long as and I think that certainly works. Okay, final question then. So we started off with sort of almost pre-A-levels, teen blogger, interest in beauty and skincare and that kind of thing. So if you were now going to speak to that person, and say, you know what, don't do this, do that, what would you say? Or not necessarily don't do this, do that, but what would you say to that younger self?
I would just say be open to every sort of opportunity that comes your way. So even though I knew that the buying aspect in my first job wasn't what I wanted to do, there were so many learnings to take from it, and I didn't realize it at the time, but it's only now when I look back. Same with the design agency. I remember at the time thinking like, this isn't for me, but just being around, I guess, like other creatives as well, like my creative director there, Nick, like just absorb the expertise of the people around you. And I didn't really take full advantage of that, I would say. Okay. But especially when I was a lot younger, like early 20s, living in London. Just
what was that? Because you're just too busy having fun?
I guess so. Yeah, it was like, your early 20s, you just, you sort of, you don't really know what you're doing quite yet.
That's all right. But no, but if you're having fun, that doesn't matter. Yeah.
But there was, just, I think, be a bit of a sponge, really. Just like take in the expertise of everybody around you. Even if you think it might not be applicable to you right now. You'll look back and you'll be like, actually, that was, I could have gained more from that. So that's what I would say. There aren't
many lessons that are wasted, are there? I think that's I think absolutely. I've got similar things I could talk about as well, that I did a whole load of things that I didn't enjoy, wasn't particularly good at.
But did you learn something from them?
Loads. Yeah. And, anyway, we won't get into that here. It's not relevant. But, absolutely. Yeah. Cool.
Thank you so much.
So, thank you for coming,
it's been fantastic.
It's been great, actually. I'm hoping, and I think we have kind of covered a fairly kind of rounded view of PR and marketing as opposed to advertising.
And just like you were saying earlier, like even though I can't take on other plastic surgeons, I'm always more than happy to have a chat with people, point them in the right direction, and
send us a message on the whatever chat thing, and we'll pick that up, or send me a message directly.
Pass on my email.
Contact us via we'll be linking your social media profile on all the various platforms anyway. So I'm sure they can get in touch with you directly.
Absolutely, yeah.
If you want to talk to me about, any of this,
your experience with PR.
Exactly. Happy to do that. I think it's a good thing.
Yeah,
I definitely do, and I think I'm going to carry on doing it because I can't see my practice working without it now.
That's nice to hear.
So yeah, definitely. And if you're curious, get in touch. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Please visit our sponsors' profile as well. Santiago from 42 South Films, who's generally set up this amazing setup. We've got so many lights in here. Subscribe and like and all the rest of it. So thank you very much for joining us. Thank you for coming again. And see you next time.